Welcome to a nourishing midweek lunch hour conversation with Spokane's newsmakers, thought leaders, and popular entertainers. Spokane Talks Live is brought to you by our friends at Homes for You and Breakthrough Incorporated. Welcome to Spokane Talks Live.
Hey, thanks for joining us. It is 7-Eleven, so I hope you got your Slurpee at the 7-Eleven gas station today. They're doing that all day until while supplies last, so I hope you've gotten one. I can't escape the studio, so I can't get mine. So will you please get one for me? We have a great show today. It's beautiful in downtown Spokane. It's a little hotter than I'd like, but it's definitely manageable compared to windy, wet weather. So we'll take what we can get. Yes, great show today. Former news anchor Susanna Baylon is here in the studio. Todd Mielke from Greater Spokane Incorporated, the CEO of Greater GSI, and all of that and more when we come back on Spokane Talks Live. We'll be right back.
Hi everyone, I'm weather forecaster and assignment anchor at Spokane Talks Online, Collin Pittman, and I am honored to be the host of the new program, Spokane's Youth Spotlight, brought to you by Spokane Talks Online and the Spokesman Review, where we are interviewing and getting to know outstanding youth in our community each month. If you'd like to nominate someone in our community that you think should be recognized, that is doing something great here in the region or has an amazing story, visit SpokaneTalksOnline.com or Spokesman.com and look under Youth Spotlight to nominate. And be sure to tune in each month as we find the best in the Inland Northwest.
Hey, welcome back. So we're doing a ticket giveaway. We already did our ticket giveaway for Spokane Valley Summer Theater's production of Into the Woods, opening on Friday. But we're doing another giveaway now, and that is for mosquito and yellow jacket season. I know they're all around the Inland Northwest, so we have a $70 value kit that can deal with that. We've got some mosquito repellent lanterns that are worth like $25, $30 each, yellow jacket, catcher, and some refills for the lanterns. So if you're interested in that, go to our Spokane Talks Facebook page and enter into the contest, and we'll be announcing a winner towards the end of the week. So I am joined with Todd Mielke, the CEO at Greater Spokane Incorporated. Yes. And Todd, there is a lot going on at GSI right now.
There is.
Including some new staff.
Absolutely. You know, we are not different than any other businesses in this community, which is, it is a very tight labor market right now.
Mm-hmm.
So when you do have an opening, it's very competitive. We've been very fortunate, though, because we had 4 openings that, 4 positions that we had start this week. Every one of those had at least 50 applicants. And what's interesting is at least 20% of the applicants were people from outside the area that wanted to relocate to Spokane. So
50%?
20%.
20%. Wow.
Were people from outside Seattle, the Puget Sound area, from Portland area, from California, who wanted to relocate to this community.
That's great.
So it's an interesting dynamic, but we brought on a new VP of Finance and Administration. We brought on a new person over at our Startup Spokane program for entrepreneurs. Brought on a new marketing and communications person, and then also in our investor relations and database manager person is going to help us sort through all of our IT headaches at times and try to make that as smooth as possible. So all 4 of them started on Monday of this week, and so all going through their onboarding and orientations.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You're actually having some mic issues. So do you want to switch to that red mic down the desk there, and we'll just use that one instead.
All right.
But
I'm just gonna get rid of this one.
Yeah, not an issue.
We'll see how long the cord is.
Yeah, it's
Try
okay.
not to kick it around.
No, we're all good. It happens.
All right.
That's part of being live. Yeah, stuff happens once in a while.
That's right.
But you also mentioned that there are outside groups
Mm-hmm.
that are hoping to really reach out and work
Yes.
with Spokane businesses.
Right. So we're often, as a business development organization, it's that combined regional chamber of commerce and economic development entity. We oftentimes have organizations that reach out to us and say, we'd really like to meet with some of the business folks in your community. Any chance? Unfortunately, sometimes it doesn't give us much forewarning. It's like,
Right.
we're coming tomorrow, or
Who can
Saturday.
we get? Yeah.
But we've had some significant folks coming through town and coming to town that want to put on the radar screen. Last week, we had the Secretary of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Sonny Perdue, came
Yes,
in.
that's right.
Met with a lot of folks in Spokane, including members of our Agribusiness Council, to talk about what's going on with the USDA. He's got a very interesting story that he talks about, sometimes confusing regulatory climate of the federal government. And the analogy he used was, so think about this. So start with the chicken. If we're going to regulate the chicken comes under the USDA for regulation purposes. The minute the chicken has lays an egg, that comes under the jurisdiction of the FDA. If the egg gets cracked anywhere in the process, then it goes back under the jurisdiction of the USDA. But the minute you decide to cook the egg, then it's back under the FDA's regulatory jurisdiction. And so he said, we're trying to straighten that out at the federal level. That's good news. There's a lot of talk about international trade and how it impacts agriculture.
Yes.
And so he said, things are going to be difficult for a while, but ultimately they think that things will be better for ag producers in our region. So we've got our fingers crossed on that.
And certainly agriculture in our region is
Very large.
a big player in our area. So I'm glad that he was able to come and really
Right.
speak with businesses and local growers here in the region about
Right.
the issues that are facing them. So
Yes.
that was really neat. One of those great opportunities.
Right.
And you also were talking before the show about opportunity zones.
Yes.
So what did you mean by that?
So a couple of the other groups. So just real quickly, yesterday, Small Business Administration had their Department of Advocacy in Spokane.
Okay.
They basically set up over at our Startup Spokane program, our office, and wanted to take input from local businesses about what federal regulations have created some
Burden for them.
burdens and higher thresholds to trying to get over for small businesses. So they did that yesterday. Today, as we speak, we're doing a joint meeting with the city of Spokane about opportunity zones, and that's a very new federal economic development program. It targets census tracts of those who are low income. So to qualify, you must have an individual poverty rate of at least 20% and a family income less than 80% of the community's median family income. So we were put in the position of identifying 5 census tracts in this region that would be automatically qualified, and then the rest of them would be through a competitive process. So the rules are just getting written for that, but basically there are financial incentives for organizations that invest in opportunity zones,
Right.
Both immediate with regard to being part of those projects as well as long-term investment advantages. So we had a meeting today with someone that came out and from the U.S. Treasury to really start talking about what rulemaking are they anticipating. So that one's today. On the 19th of July, we have the Washington State Legislature, the House Finance Committee coming to Spokane. Unfortunately, it's a Saturday, but it's 9 a.m. to noon at the historic Davenport, and they're going to be talking about taxes and the B&O tax and what type of changes need to be made. And then we have, lastly, also this month, the 22nd through the 26th, we are hosting what's called PNWAR, the Pacific Northwest Economic Region. It is a combination of states in the Northwest plus 2 Canadian provinces, and it is their business leaders, their policy leaders, and their politicians that all come together. So we'll have a little more than somewhere between 600 and 700 individuals coming to
Wow.
Spokane to talk about huge policy implications in a variety of areas. Agriculture, healthcare, research, water, and the list goes on, cross-border crossings, and what the impact is going to be in the Northwest.
So obviously that's going to be available for businesses, but can individuals just attend these events as well?
Yes. So
Okay.
if you want more information, contact Greater Spokane Incorporated and say, hey, I either want to talk about getting more information on the House Finance Committee meeting or the PNWAR conference,
Right.
anything like that, we can provide information.
And so what sort of activities are going on at Startup Spokane? 'Cause I know
Certainly.
that's a big thing around here.
Absolutely. So one of the things that we're doing over there is I mentioned that we brought on a second person over there to we have co-working space, plus we provide a lot of programmatic things to really help that person who's got a concept for a new business, how they get started, how do they write their business plan,
what's that first access to capital, those kinds of things. In addition to that, we have a couple of things that are coming up. We have a couple of what we call lunch and learns. One next week that's really going to be talking about the access to capital instruments, what's out there for those businesses that are seeking investment capital.
Right.
And then a couple of weeks after that, we'll also be holding a session with regard to scaling your business. For those that got started, they're still a small operation and they want to figure out how to grow that. We'll be hosting a session with regard to how to scale your business. We also have a lot of interns and students over at our startup program right now. Some of those are from the River Point Academy. Getting used to what's it look like to start a new business and what are all the elements. We also have students from Eastern, and what they're doing is they are studying what we call latent technology. It is from Washington State University, did a bunch of research. They came to their conclusions, and it's kind of been sitting on the shelf. Well, these students are looking at that research and saying, is there any current use for that research that could be commercialized? So that's another program activity that's going on over at the startup offices right now. Yeah. So, like I said, trying to identify how would you use this in today's world,
right?
And is it something that a lot of people would be interested in doing?
And what do you think? Obviously, there are several small businesses that are starting up in Spokane as we speak.
Right.
But what do you think that climate is for them right now?
I think it's great. So one of the things that we emphasize in Spokane, especially with startup businesses, is their what we call the runway. And so the notion is typically, if you have a concept and want to start a business, it probably takes you a couple of years to really get your feet underneath you and get enough momentum, build your client base, those kinds of things. And so the question is if you get investment in your company, startup capital, seed money, those kinds of things, how far will it go? So the case that we make is if you're in central Puget Sound, if you're in the Silicon Valley down out of San Francisco, the issue is how far does that money go? So if you get somebody to invest a couple $1 million in your business concept,
right,
how long will it last? And will it get you through the 2 years that it really takes to kind of get established? Well, we believe it goes a lot further in Spokane based on the cost of talent, the cost of space, workspace, tax policies, all that kind of stuff. And so we think there's a significant advantage to locating here with your ability to impact your bottom line.
And obviously the cost of property, but the cost of living too.
Absolutely.
I was looking at colleges across the country and a lot of the bigger cities, and I found that most of the big cities had, pretty hefty price tags when it came to the cost of living.
That's right.
Whereas these mid-sized markets like Spokane, you can really stretch that dollar and do a lot more.
So there are two ways to look at that. One is the actual financial costs. So as you said, cost of housing. A salary in Spokane of $60,000, and you figure out what kind of buying power that gives you, you would need to make $98,000 in the Seattle area to offer a roughly similar quality of life. And I'm not sure that even captures the entire cost of housing because of how fast it's escalating. And then there's those that are more difficult to itemize. And that is, what are the other ones that allow you to have this, work-life balance?
Right.
What does congestion look like in some of those major metropolitan areas? Because that becomes a big factor if you can't get to point A to point B, or if you have a daily commute of 1 hour each way. And so a recent analysis that I saw was that people who live in Seattle versus in Spokane probably lose 7 to 10 days of their life in commute times every year versus living in someplace like Spokane.
Wow.
Our key is to make sure that we don't fall in the same trap and that we are thinking ahead, that we are investing in our infrastructure in such a way that we don't have those same issues, that we don't suffer the same consequences that create kind of an adverse reaction to people who want to locate here.
And we are growing.
We are.
I just saw
Quickly.
A few days ago that we have reached over 500,000 people
for Spokane County.
In Spokane County, that's a big deal for us.
It is. We are. It's when you look at rankings of metropolitan areas, the minute you break the top 100 in this country, it's significant for a lot of reasons. You qualify for programs, but you also get a lot more attention from industries about being major markets and those kinds of things. And so I'm not sure what the latest number is, but for a while we were at 99. I think we are gaining momentum in our position in that top 100 metropolitan areas in this country.
And okay, so we're gonna kind of go off on a different path here.
Right.
You have an education and talent group.
Right.
And so what's kind of new and going on there as well?
You bet. So a couple of things. So one of the top questions that we get in economic development from a business that wants to expand here or one that wants to relocate here, one of the first things is, can I find talent? You know, am I going to just be stuck with vacant positions and things?
Right.
Because in some of those metropolitan areas, rapidly growing companies are experiencing vacancy rates of 10, 15% or more of positions that they're trying to fill. One of my last conversations with Amazon, they said they had roughly 50,000 positions in the Puget Sound area, and they had roughly 6,000 to 8,000 of them that were vacant that they were struggling to fill. So that's significant. So it's a big deal when we talk about what are we doing in Spokane to develop that. And so part of this is we're doing a couple things. We have a number of programs. We have career-connected learning with kids in the K through 12 system, trying to connect them to high-growth, high-demand careers, so they become aware of those maybe in middle school. And so as they pick their classes for the rest of middle school and high school,
Right.
it's something that's in line with where they want to go professionally. So they've got that advantage.
That's neat.
We recently co-hosted a meeting with manufacturers to talk about pathways, let's say business-sponsored pathways or career launch opportunities, where essentially they're providing more and more of the on-site education, kind of getting that work experience right up. So the issue is, can you come out of high school? Can you take essentially what's an internship or an apprenticeship and go to work for that company? Well, they help train you. You also are probably taking classes provided through the community college. And at the end of a certain time period, between the experience that you get and the classes you're taking, you have that AA degree with 2 years of job experience. So that's the dialogue that we're having right now with other organizations in Washington State and with the business community to see if those are one more opportunity to develop the talent that we need to be successful.
Great. Todd, thanks for coming in today.
Absolutely, thank
I
you.
learned a lot, so I hope you guys did too. We're going to be right back on Spokane Talks Live with a former news anchor in Spokane. All that and more when we come back.
The economy is getting stronger. Banks are lending again, and interest rates are at historic lows. Now is a great time to buy your dream home. The caring and knowledgeable professionals at Homes for You have been helping people just like you for over 20 years. They take the time to listen to what you want and will help you find just the right home in Washington or Idaho. Real estate is what we do at Homes for You, 928-5782, or visit online at homes4uspokane.com.
Is your child having trouble coping with a personal disability, but don't know where to go? Consider our friends at Breakthrough Incorporated. Breakthrough takes great pride in mentoring their DDA clients who have intellectual disabilities and their BRS clients who have challenging behaviors toward the creation of safe, appropriate, ethically sound life goals. They integrate programs at school and home to enrich their lives. They work hard to make a positive difference in you and your family's lives. Breakthrough provides a highly structured, fully staffed residential setting in local neighborhoods, 6 in Spokane and 2 in the Tri-Cities. Diagnoses affect people differently, so their service to each resident is unique, giving them the opportunity to grow and evolve. For more information on Breakthrough, visit their website at breakthroughincorporated.org.
You're really doing it! You're ready to buy a house. You know what you can afford, you've got a pre-approval letter, and you and your partner haven't killed each other yet. Now's the fun part. First, think about your main requirements.
Location,
House type,
square footage,
number of beds and baths,
Garage.
property age,
Then think about specific features.
waterfront,
pool,
local schools,
neighborhood safety,
walking distance to parks.
proximity to a decent Turkish bathhouse.
HO.
From there, input all your search criteria. Min and max prices, number of beds and baths, single fam, multifam, condo, co-op, villa, townhouse, farm, whatever. You can even draw your own custom search around the neighborhood you want. The open house is the most fun you can have in real estate. It's like having carte blanche to walk into a total stranger's house and snoop around while they're not there. Here are a few pointers. First, feel free to step in without knocking or ringing the bell. Unless you see a note saying otherwise, in which case, yes, knock and/or ring. It's generally considered good open house etiquette to wait until a group of buyers leaves a room or area before entering.
What we were talking about. Let's check it out. I know, so.
Listen to what other buyers are saying. They may know something about the property or neighborhood that you don't.
I bet they don't even know they have
Oh,
this.
no. Ask questions about the house, how long it's been on the market, the school district, the property taxes, but keep it cool. Don't give yourself away by sounding too excited.
And the schools in this area are incredible. Woo! They're actually building a brand new one 3 blocks away.
What?
And it should be open in the middle of next year.
Please do not steal. Finally, if there are snacks or refreshments, do not take them. It'll skew your perspective. Unless they're mini quiches. Those little are tasty as hell.
Welcome back. I am with a face that you might very well recognize. A former news anchor here in Spokane, a theater lover, a mom, a wife, and really just a kind-hearted human being who I have really grown to admire. And Susanna Baylon is in the studio.
It's good to join you, Collin.
Thank you. I'm glad that you were willing to join me. So I am very interested in broadcast, and having had a career in broadcast, I think that's kind of like what I would like to base our discussion around today. So you've been a very successful news anchor here in Spokane. So why did you leave the news world, per se, and what does your life look like since then?
Okay, so I worked for 18 years in the television news business,
Wow.
doing everything from reporting to producing to managing editing to anchoring to editing my own tape and things like that, and had done it in 4 different TV stations.
Wow.
Didn't get married till I was 38 years old.
Which
and
can happen in broadcast.
That can
It's
happen in
very
broadcast
demanding.
because you're so busy. And I had my daughter when I was 40. And once I had her, I felt like I kind of tell people I did things backwards. I felt like I had my career, I knew what it was, and I was satisfied with what I'd done, and I loved my job. But I felt it was so much more important to be home with my daughter. And it was a choice that I made, and people are like, how could you walk away from a great job? And I said, I loved my job, but I love this better. And television news is one of those things in journalism. If you want to do it, in my opinion, properly, you have to give almost all of yourself to it.
Right.
You can't be scattered. It takes a lot of energy, and there are no normal hours in television. So I retired.
That is very, very true. And I think you mentioned that you did editing and a lot of those different things. And I'm learning that being a diverse journalist is so important because you really begin to value and appreciate the people on the other side.
Yes.
And I think so often in today's world, people have this perception that television, and being a news anchor specifically, it's this glamorous, lush job. You show up and read the teleprompter and go home. And to a certain extent, that might be true, but there's so much more that goes into being a journalist and being a good journalist that your job demands.
Yes.
And like you mentioned, the hours are so wacky. I have an internship or a morning job at KHQ, and I get up at 3:30 in the morning and head off to work until 10 a.m. And so it's not your ideal 9 to 5 work hours, which is kind of funny because I think while people watch you on morning television or evening television, I still somewhat think that they think it's this glamorous thing. I don't know. Do you think that? What do you think people kind of see the news world
People
as?
always ask me that question, and it's hard work. And I always advise younger people that want to go into it, it has to be your heart. If it's your passion, then do it. But if you're getting into it because you think it's glamorous, you think you'll become locally famous or something like that, then those are not the reasons to get into it. You have to have a heart for storytelling. And I love your point about really getting to know the entire business, because I think that helped me as a journalist. I can write quickly, but I can write thoughtfully. There was a time when I anchored the show that I produced, so I had to read my own stuff. So you learn pretty quickly how to write for television news, which is totally different than writing for a newspaper. But once you understand all those elements, it does make you a better journalist.
So I know you were a really successful anchor locally. Did you ever think about taking that next step, going to a bigger market, going to even, working your way up to national television, which is, I think anyone that goes into broadcast, I think we all have that end goal in mind, but life happens. You meet someone along the way and you get married, or you have kids, or you find a place you're happy with. But did you ever think, okay, I kind of want to go to the next step?
Well, when I got the job here in Spokane, I had been offered the week before a job at an NBC owned and operated television station, which was a local station, but it was actually owned by the network. Had I taken that job, it was a feeder for the network. So I might have been able to take that next step. But when I came here to Spokane, I looked at the city. I loved the lifestyle, and I moved here with just myself and my cat. I didn't know a soul, but I knew I was supposed to be here. And so I even stepped back in market size, because a lot of people will talk about your goal is to keep moving up in markets. I stepped back. I moved here from Tampa, Florida, and but I just knew I wanted to be here. And in hindsight, I see now how it all worked out. I met my husband. We had our daughter. So
I love that it works out that way.
Yeah.
I love that you said it takes something more. You have to love it. You have to be passionate about it, about the storytelling aspect. And I'm also really involved in theater, and I'm learning that I think that's something that I admire about each of them, both theater and broadcast, is that you're telling a story.
Yes.
You're giving information to viewers, whether, on camera or audience members, through a stage production. You're really providing a story, whether it's enlightening or sad or whatever it is. You're the conveyor of that message. And I think that there's a great responsibility to that, and in doing that well. But you're right, you have to love it.
Yes.
And I see, some of my peers that are interested in similar careers, and I wonder, how many of us will last in broadcast? Will we find other things that we really find more engaging or find that we're more passionate about? So, I don't know, did you ever meet people along the way that maybe had started in broadcast and found, oh, this isn't for me, or it's not what I thought, I'm more passionate about this, or this isn't the life for me?
Yes, I have a lot of friends that have done that, actually, that started out in the business and then realized that the hours were crazy or the pay wasn't what they wanted, because when you start out, you don't get paid very much. You might work your way up to something good. So I did have a lot of friends that left the business or were in it for just a couple of years, and it didn't work out the way they thought it should. I have watched that. But you and I are similar, because I also love theater. And I think that's the thing I loved about broadcasting, was telling people's stories that somehow then impact you in a certain way because of the humanity of it.
And, there's obviously so many different paths within broadcast. There's sports broadcasting, and there's news anchoring, and there's reporting, and there's weather, and, there's all these different outlets. But I think what I'm learning that I love is the storytelling aspect, and not necessarily the latest shooting or stabbing and, the gruesome details, but like this sort of conversational, really telling someone's story. And so those types of stories that I see on the evening news, that's what I love. And so I think that for me, that's almost more talk-based. And part of me wonders is, there's so many talk shows across the country. We've had Oprah Winfrey, who was very successful. And now you see some talk shows that aren't nearly as successful, that they try to get the ball rolling. Why do you think that is? Like, well, I'm always curious to see, you know, these celebrities in today's world that start a talk show that I think, oh, this is going to be really popular, and it doesn't. The ratings don't work out, and I'm always confused as to, you know, why that is.
Well, sometimes it's just that the show is not engaging, but also you have to remember back when Oprah Winfrey started, there were only 3 networks when she started her talk show. So there were only 3 choices. We have so many choices today where to get information or where to even watch television that we don't have combined experiences. I was talking to a girlfriend the other day, you know, we watched the same TV shows growing up. Hardly anybody I know watches the same shows I do now because you're watching off of Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, CBS, NBC, ABC.
There's a lot of options.
Yes, we don't have that common denominator of connectivity.
Right.
And so technology has pushed us where it's really hard for a show to be successful because we are just all so scattered and different.
That's really interesting. And do you think that any of it does have to do with the personality? You know, I know when a lot of people compare anchors in particular, they, you know, oftentimes people reference to Oprah Winfrey as she's so real and raw and philosophical and authentic, and that's what people love about her. And she's very unscripted.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that so many of us admire about her. But do you think that there's a certain element there too that plays into that?
Yes, definitely. I think people have to see genuineness and authenticity to be able to connect nowadays.
Right.
And sometimes that doesn't happen immediately. Sometimes it's built over time. But I think Oprah has that it factor where you just know that this person can connect with other people.
Right. So where do you see the world of broadcast in 7 years down the road? I know that I think 5 to 7 years. Yeah, that's a good timeline. Because I have this idea in my head that I will go into broadcast and I'll graduate from college and go into the industry, and things will be fairly similar to the way they are now for about 4 or 5 years, and then things will really start to change. I mean, we're already seeing things change with internet-based, what we're doing now, podcasts, and a lot of online social media targets and different platforms. So do you think that the evening news and the morning news, do you think all of those elements will be as vital as they are today or 20 years ago?
I think it's going to be different. I started in broadcasting when we just had typewriters and we had AP wire, and now we have, you know, technology where I can be a broadcaster with just my cell phone and some internet.
Right.
I could have my own YouTube channel, which would be, in effect, a TV station if I wanted to.
Right.
I have the editing capability on my camera to do that. And so it goes back to, it used to be people would eat dinner. My family growing up, we'd eat dinner, and then we'd watch the evening news. People don't do that anymore together. Everybody's so scattered that I think it is going to be different. And the real challenge for local news is staying relevant, and looking and keeping up with technology. You know, all the TV stations now have Facebook pages. They didn't when I retired from my job. They all have Twitter accounts. They all have things that they post on YouTube, so that you know, they have apps where you can get real-time news. So it's going to be a real challenge. They're going to have to adapt with the technology to look for other revenue sources, because it is advertising that at the end of the day pays for TV news.
And do you think there's a bit of a competition now between evening television and morning television? Are the tides changing? Because I heard the other day that, you know, evening television used to be the place to be. That's where the ratings were. That's where the money was. And now people are like, all that people are really watching is morning television, as, you know, they have it turned on while they're eating breakfast before they go to work or getting the kids on the bus. So do you think that's true, or do you think that evening news is still relevant and watched and will be?
I think you're absolutely right. With morning news is the only real segment of television, as far as broadcast news, that has been growing. And it's been doing that since about 2001, 2002, where people started seeing, people were working later, so they weren't coming home at 5 o'clock to watch, all the stations air a 5 o'clock newscast.
Right.
Who's home at 5 o'clock?
Right.
How many people do you know? So morning news has become more important. And if you look like NBC with the Today Show, that was their cash cow for the longest time. And that's where they put their resources, a lot of their resources into now. It's morning news is definitely, I think, the segment that's growing and where people, when they're getting ready for work, will turn it on.
And I was talking to some of my friends about this a couple weeks ago, and they said, we don't really have to watch the evening news because we get notifications from news stations and media outlets on our phones throughout the day.
Yeah.
So why would we tune in to listen to 20-second sound bites of things we've already got notifications for?
Yeah, that's media
so
in general.
That was a really interesting comment. I think I had acknowledged that, but never really said it out loud or heard someone say it or really wanted to admit that because, that's my future career or what I see it being.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. But I think, as scary as the broadcast change is looking through technology and different aspects, I think it's always been changing.
Yes.
So part of me wonders and thinks that, maybe this isn't really different than it's always been.
It is
we've
always
been
changing.
adding elements, So what was the biggest thing that you saw in your news career that was added in the newsroom?
Computers.
Was it really?
Computers changed everything because you had things instantly at your access.
Right.
And the TV station I worked for didn't get computers till it was the early 90s.
And how did you present the news before? Like, that is the only way I know how to gain information and present the news. And so this idea of not having that technology at our fingertips or being able to record from an iPhone and run downtown and shoot an interview, that is just bizarre to me. I can't even imagine.
Oh, you child.
Yes, really. So
we would use the AP Wire would send us national, international news, and we would pick up the phones and call people and do our homework and do our research to get local stories. It was a lot more work. When I produced my own show, I would type it up on carbon copy papers that would then be taped and put through a teleprompter, which is now all done through computer.
Wow. Right.
I would hard edit tapes. Feeds would come down over satellite that you'd have to kind of dial up the satellite to get the video from the network. Yeah, it was very different.
That is so funny. I kind of wonder what that will be like 30 years from now. Will there be some new form of the computer, or what will that look like? So that'll be interesting too. Yeah. Okay, so last question: as a mom, how do you view the media? What is your image of the media today? And I mean, all forms, social media, news. Do you have different feelings now as a mom than you did, before you had Noelle? What are those feelings for you?
I think, media now, its biggest challenge is that there's so much misinformation out there that people are allowed to promote and push. And I always tell my daughter when we're listening to the radio, which we still do in the car, or if we're listening to it at home, or I still get the printed newspaper when we're reading it, we'll talk about stories and we'll talk about different issues and where the information came from. And I always tell her, don't believe everything you hear or see. You have to do your own homework sometimes to find out what's true. We live in an age where everybody wants to get the information out as quickly as possible, and it's not always accurate, or it can be distorted if somebody has a certain agenda. They can leave out the front end of what you say and have the back end of it and take it totally out of context.
Right.
So we have those discussions in our home.
That's really interesting, and it's so easy to instantly clip those things and put out what you want. And so I think now more than ever that the core of journalism is so important, making sure that everything you're giving to viewers is fact-based. It is what it is, and that you're not, like you mentioned this before the show, you're not telling them your life story or putting out your opinions, because I think most aspects of journalism weren't meant to be commentary.
No, not journalism.
Right.
Commentary and talk shows meant to be opinion. Journalism and news sources never meant to be opinion, but fact-based, where you present the facts and let people decide for themselves what they want to do with that.
And that's what I love about it.
Yeah.
Is that you don't have to tell people what you think and hope that they're agreeing with you. It's that you're presenting the information and they can take it for how they want.
Yeah.
But there's I feel like there's a really great responsibility for presenting that information in a fair and accurate way.
Yes.
So I am excited to enter into this industry, and I'm very glad that I have you as a resource and as a mentor to reach out to. So I thank you for that.
Oh,
and thanks for coming on today.
My
I learned a
pleasure.
little bit. I didn't even know what the AP wire was. So
Associated Press wire. It goes and spits out from a machine with paper. It goes.
Oh my goodness. I'm going to have to Google this when we're done. See the things we can do today. Thank you, Susanna.
You're welcome.
And that is all for Spokane Talks Live today. Have a great day. And if you're interested in that giveaway for the mosquito and yellow jacket lanterns and those traps, look on our Facebook page at Spokane Talks. And we'll see you next week. Bye.
Spokane Talks Live is produced in Spokane, Washington by Spokane Talks Online LLC, which is solely responsible for its content. To recommend a guest or topic, or to see this program again, please visit our website, SpokaneTalksOnline.com. Spokane Talks Live is brought to you by our friends at Homes for You and Breakthrough Incorporated. Join us next Wednesday, noon, for another nourishing conversation on Spokane Talks Live.